Ah, what are we to do? Your winter has been destroyed, I tell you. This is Aslan's doing.
If either of you mention that name again, you shall be instantly...
Welcome to Talking Beasts
from NarniaWeb.com,
where we explore the world of C.S. Lewis
and keep a watchful eye
on the latest Narnia movie news.
This is Talking Beasts.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm your host, Rillian.
And I'm Glenn Puddle.
And tonight we have a very special guest, Kristi from thelionscall.com.
Hi, pleased to meet you. Glad to be here.
Good to have you here. And tonight we're going to be discussing a very special Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe adaptation. Glenn Puddle, why don't you tell us some about this? Because it's not as well known as the Walden film or even the BBC film.
Well, yeah. So what we're talking about today is this 90-minute adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was broadcast on CBS in April 1979. It was directed by Bill Melendez, who's best known for directing the most famous Charlie Brown stuff, including Charlie Brown Christmas. It had a pretty troubled production, actually. The studio originally hired to produce the movie backed out relatively late in the game, leaving Melendez just 9 months to make the movie, basically, which is very little time. And here are a few interview clips with his son, Steve Melendez, who was a producer on this.
The original book was illustrated, but they were book illustrations, and sometimes it's just impossible to take those and make them move. It was very difficult if they haven't been designed for that. We got a designer in, Al Sheehan, who's a really good designer, and he did some incredibly off-the-wall things, which we loved. And everybody said, that's fine. We went to the copyright owners, and they hated them. And so we had to redesign, and I'd animated on the first section about 2 minutes when the word came down that the copyright holders didn't like the kids, the designs of the kids. And then they called up and said, and we also don't like the voices. So we had to re-record them. So just a nightmare. But we managed to get over it.
So yeah, quite a bit of drama and very big rush to get this ready for the air date, especially since they had to make multiple versions, one with American accents and another with English accents. But anyway, they did make the air date, and when it was first broadcast, it was seen by 37 million people and went on to receive the Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program that year. So despite the crazy production, it was definitely judged a success. But the real question, decades later, do Narnia Webbers judge it to be a success? So we posted a poll in the Talking Beasts Facebook group asking our listeners what they think about the movie. And out of about a quarter of them had not seen it at all. But out of the listeners who have seen the movie, 52% said it was pretty good, 18% said it was not good, 15% said it was just okay, and 10% loved it. In the comments section, Leanna wrote, quote, "It has its flaws, but I love it. It always felt more real to me as a kid than the BBC version, and the scene where Aslan plays with the girls is beautiful," end quote. Rebecca wrote, quote, "Well, the only thing I really liked about it was that Lucy has blonde hair for once," end quote. And the reason I thought it might be cool to have Kristi from thelionscall.com is you made a really interesting discovery, which is that there was a prequel to this movie planned. They were going to make the Magician's Nephew animated movie and apparently never did. So tell us what you found.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I have a few different saved searches on eBay and in the hope of scaring up a prop or something like that. And one morning, these storyboards came up, but it's all on note paper. So at first it took a little while just kind of looking at the pictures and reading through to make sure that it was something legitimate. I think it's over 150 pages. It's really quite large. And my friend Swan White and I did a review. You can find the YouTube video on thelionscall.com. About the first half of it, we were going through it page by page, and as I said, it was really thick, and we realized we can't go through this page by page, and we had to start sort of skipping pages and making comments, but there was a lot of interesting content to look at, and most of it seemed to be very faithful
So cool. So head over to thelionscall.com and check that out. She's got the long video where they flip through it, and she's also got a lot of the pictures too, and just drool over what might have been.
I'm looking at them now. This is fascinating.
Yeah. But in the meantime, we can talk about what in fact was.
So I rewatched the film on Saturday. I have to confess, the first time I saw it, I was probably 10. I might have been 12, maybe as old as 12. So we're talking almost 20 years ago since I had actually last seen it. And I remembered it pretty well. Although the version I watched, I remember I was so irritated with it because it had the American accents.
Uh-huh.
So this was actually really cool. So I sat down and I watched it with my son.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw it would have been probably 2005, probably shortly before The Lion, the Witch, before the Walden Media movie came out, actually. I was like, wait, why haven't I seen this?
I grew up with the American accents, so I think today may have been the first time that I really heard it with realizing I was hearing it with the British. I may have come across it before and gone like, that doesn't sound like what I remember. So for me, the American accents are the kids, and Aslan, just that voice is always Aslan. I'm so glad they kept it in both versions, because I can't imagine anyone doing better. I think that the voices and everything, the script is so ingrained in me from a young age. I mean, I'm not going to deny the nostalgia factor here.
And the script is largely from the book. It's basically a 90-minute condensed version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, although there are certainly some changes. And I always forget about, it opens up, and it seems like it's, going to be like the book. It's some atmosphere stuff where it's slowly zooming in closer and closer to the house. And then it slowly zooms in through all the different rooms through the wardrobe room, and Lucy jumps out of the wardrobe. And the first thing you hear in the movie is,
I'm here. I've come back. I'm all right. It's all right. I've come back. What on earth are you talking about, Lucy? Haven't you been wondering where I was?
You'll have to hide for longer than that if you want people to start looking for you.
But I've been away for hours and hours.
I hardly notice when you're here.
Now, Lucy's having fun, Edmund.
No, I'm not.
It definitely took me by surprise the first time I saw it. It definitely grabs you instantly, which is an advantage, especially for a really short film, like it is, where it's trying to condense so much. It kind of instantly grabs you and pulls you in. So from that standpoint, maybe it works well rather than trying to build a lead up and establish characters and who each character is. Because that opening scene does do a very efficient job of quickly showing where each character's place is in the story.
I feel like when I was a kid, I might have thought there was a piece missing because I would have seen it recorded onto VHS.
Yeah, same.
By my parents, and that that happens, that things get missed after a commercial break or something.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, so Lucy, the opening scene is Lucy jumping out of the wardrobe, and as she's explaining her story about meeting a fawn in the wardrobe, we're just in the dark like the other three siblings, and we have to decide as an audience, do we believe Lucy or not? And then in flashback, it shows the classic scene with Tumnus, and it's revealed, yes, she's telling the truth, basically. So it's a way to jump right into the story and raise the question, well, is Lucy telling the truth? Which I think is a great way, dramatically speaking, and that's a device that's been used many times since then in movies. But I think in terms of drama, in terms of jumping right into the story, I think it's a great way to open the movie.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice.
Yeah, I thought it worked especially for a kids film. And that's kind of okay. That's kind of a maybe a bad way to phrase it, because obviously it's the Chronicles of Narnia. But I got the idea. This is directed towards a younger audience, maybe even than most fans of the book.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I would summarize this adaptation for those of you who haven't seen it is it's the fairly it's 90 minutes. So somewhat condensed version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where they're constantly trying to keep the story moving, keep the pace up, and maybe most importantly, keep the tension up as much as possible. Not unlike Lord of the Rings as an adaptation, actually, where a lot of that is cutting down, keeping the plot moving, and doing things like, in the book, in Bag End, when Gandalf comes back to tell Frodo about the ring, it's like, so Frodo, there's this ring here. We should talk about it. And then it all comes out, and then months later, Frodo finally gets on the road. In the movie, it's a secret, it's a safe,
Yeah.
and you must get out of the Shire immediately, and it's this big fast thing.
Yeah, and the book it's kind of like, well, how soon do we have to leave? Oh, not right away.
Right.
Probably in the next year you should leave.
Well, and he waits about 70 years to actually tell Frodo he's got the ring. It seems
I had to be sure, Frodo.
Yeah.
Right. So there's some of that going on, and I think there's a lot of that going on in this adaptation. For example, when the White Witch, she has Edmund, and the other siblings and the beavers are trying to get to the stone table, there's this intercut back and forth where it feels like a chase scene. You see the witch, faster, faster, and then it cuts back to the beavers and the kids, and they're running as fast as they can, but they're clearly not running as fast as the witch. It feels like a chase scene.
We must hurry. It's thawing, and that will cause the sledge problems.
I see them! Faster, faster, I can see them! Fool! Keep the sledge going! Faster! Faster! Don't sit staring, fool! Get out and help!
So there's a lot of attempt to keep the tension on, keep the pace on, keep the momentum up as much as possible. That's a big part of the adaptation.
I would say that's no bad thing. I think they do an excellent job doing that regarding Mr. Tumnus when he pauses in that line, which doesn't make quite as much sense, I think, to children, but he says, absolutely delighted, and he's got this expression. They're great with his face.
But I've never seen a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve before. I'm delighted to meet, that is to say, absolutely delighted.
You're like, okay, there's something vaguely creepy about him. Besides his character design, there's something wrong. And, of course, you don't quite get that from the book.
Yeah, I think in the book, you probably don't think he's evil. It's probably a surprise when you find out he's in the pay of the White Witch. Whereas here, he almost breaks the fourth wall, turns to the camera, and this guy's a trickster. He's up to no good.
The part that I thought was actually the most interesting, that I think was just an effort to speed up the story, that where it ended up being maybe an inadvertent change that I didn't like, was how the Pevensies all get into Narnia the third time by trying.
Yeah. Mm.
They basically just say, "Oh, well, let's just walk inside and try it." So they just walk in.
Yeah, Mrs. Maccready is not in the movie at all, is she?
Yeah, she's not in the. So basically, Peter and Susan talk to the professor, and he says, "Oh, but which I actually love the dialogue in that scene. They did a great job with it, adapting it from the book." And basically, though, the next scene is, let's just try it. So they basically just walk in and they just make their way into Narnia.
Yeah, it just cuts right in there.
Yeah, they never really explain what Lucy was doing in there either, which it's hard to do. Walden, I think, had the same problem. You can't explain that the little girl likes to smell fur coats. It's hard to...
Right, and it doesn't... Yeah, that's true. You don't really... I think she says we were exploring the house, but because we're hearing her voice in her head, which is, by the way, a pet peeve. That is one thing I'll say about the movie. There's a number of scenes where you can hear their thoughts and I really don't like.
Yeah, the BBC version even took that too. Had the people thinking to themselves out loud.
Yeah, which I don't like. There's a few scenes in this movie where they do that. It doesn't feel necessary, but I wish they wouldn't do that.
I do like it in comparison. If you want to have the line there that Edmund says about having the decent roads, I do like it better than the split body thing that the BBC did.
He's talking to the ghost of himself. Sure.
Yeah, I agree. And
because it's so fast-paced, when they do slow down for something, it has real impact. Like Aslan's death, it's just the whole story just stops. And it makes the scene feel like, I would guess, it's in terms of minutes, it's probably shorter than the Walden version, but it feels longer because it's in the middle of this fast story, and all of a sudden the whole story just stops.
I can't bear the look of that horrible muzzle. I wonder if we could take it off.
Well, and the tension's there. It's a sad scene. I actually thought even though I mean, some parts of me look at this like, okay, this is like an old cartoon kids movie, you know? So I don't have the love for it that Kristi does, probably because I just didn't grow up with it. But it actually felt kind of sadder than the Walden film, I thought, when Aslan died. Although there was one moment, I have to say, I burst out laughing so hard. On the part where Aslan's lying on the stone table, the witch just kind of jumps, like appears, just pops up like a gopher out of the ground all of a sudden. If you watch it, like, I thought, okay, that made me laugh hysterically. But the attention though was where it was supposed to be. It actually does a great job, even rolling right into Aslan's resurrection and all the time and attention that's spent with the girls and Aslan and him.
Yeah.
Even just, I love how like he walks through the grass and it comes to life with flowers.
Yeah, and that's something that's not in the book, which again was really kind of ingrained in me. I was absolutely sure that was in the book, that the flowers sprang up everywhere until I was researching it. But
wherever Aslan lands, flowers grow up. Yeah,
that's actually something I believe from probably Welsh mythology. But there was a maiden named Olwen, and wherever she stepped, white flowers would appear. I think Lewis would probably approve of the change.
Yeah, I think that whole area is there's so much more time spent on it than the Walden version. It feels like they stopped to have Aslan jump around and play with the girls. And I must say, just like you pointed out, the whole white witch thing popping up like a gopher, really. And I'm going to come right out and say that I really like this movie quite a bit in terms of the script and the pacing. I think they do a nice job with the plot. It is such a shame that the animation, especially I think it's really well directed in terms of drama, just a good job with the story. But it is such a shame that the animation totally lets it down. If it's just the animation feels crude and sloppy, and there's no continuity at all, and it's kind of off-putting a lot of the time, and that's definitely the low point of this animated adaptation is unfortunately the animation itself.
Well, and I liked some of the background.
Yeah,
I like the way that the backgrounds look with the mountains or the grass, and I mean that's the thing is like even looking at some of the animation. I mean I compare this to like the old Hobbit cartoon, you know. Or the old Return of the King cartoon, which you can even take stills of that, and it's almost like a cool painting. You know, some of it, the way some of the characters were done.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering if that's what some is meant as far as when they say they had more interesting character designs. I wonder what those would have been like. Because yeah, the only thing that came to mind was things like the Last Unicorn or the old Hobbit.
Yeah, I wonder, and I can understand the C.S. Lewis estate wants to, guard the brand and guard Narnia and all that, but I kind of wonder if they had just said, hey, embrace it, just make the best, most interesting looking animated film you can. Maybe that would have been the way to go.
Because it felt rushed and plain.
Yeah, it feels safe and generic looking.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you look at how the White Witch is, which I don't know what it is with White Witch actresses overacting.
I like it in this.
You do?
I do. I love it in this instance.
Are you an overgrown dwarf that has cut off its beard?
I'm a boy.
A boy? Do you mean you are a son of Adam? Answer me once and for all, or I will lose my patience. Are you human?
Yes, Your Majesty.
And how, pray, did you come to enter my dominions?
So you're saying you like this White Witch being kind of over the top, and I get the sense I'm kind of between you guys. But Kristi, let me ask you, what did you think of Barbara Kellerman's performance in the BBC version? Speaking of White Witches that are rather over the top.
I think though, because I believe I have heard that a lot of people complain that she chews the scenery, and I think the problem is because again you have a human actor on, a live person trying to make something convincing, and certain things don't translate as well.
And I'll admit that the White Witch's acting in this is certainly it's not as much of a problem for this as it is like it would be in a Walden film. So I'll agree with you there that for a kid's cartoon, it doesn't have the same impact.
But but you're not a kid, so I mean, like, if you don't have to necessarily view it that way. So it sounded like for you really, and it sounded like it was off-putting.
No, and I wouldn't. If I were making it, I wouldn't want her. If I were directing it, I wouldn't have directed her in a cartoon for this age group. I wouldn't have directed her to act that way either.
It's not just the vocal performance. Her animation, she's all over the place. Her arms are in the air. She's freaking out when she's talking to Edmund. She actually picks him up and holds him and says, "Not
and just
the
drops
Queen
him.
of Narnia,"
and then just drops him. He plummets into the snow.
Okay, that is fair. It's hilarious, but that's fair. There are moments where her voice is just, especially the American one. I listening to the British, I caught there are certain inflections she does differently, but I noticed that the way she speaks sometimes is sweet as sugar, but a lot of that scene, you're like, okay, Edmund is really. There's no way any child is going to, react favorably to.
It's like Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove.
Right.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
Yeah,
seriously,
I think in their eagerness to keep the tension on, keep the dramatic, keep the pressure on. Maybe they try too hard to make the White Witch threatening to where it's like, would Edmund really be taken in by this? That is a weak point of this adaptation. I admit. It's
more like they're showing what she's thinking, and we do get an odd scene toward the end, actually, where we get a scene from her point of view that's not in the book when she's aligning her people on the ridge top, which had never occurred to me before.
At dawn we shall destroy them. Deploy our people all along the ridge. Mount guards and secure the ridge. The others rest. What a glorious day tomorrow shall be.
I actually like that scene. It's probably my favorite scene with the witch in the movie.
Well, she's a general. She's acting like a general, which is, again, what Tilda does as well.
But it's like not. But yeah, they really take the time when Aslan dies. First off, when she stabs him, like lightning flashes. It's this really biblical, powerful moment. They really hammer home the despair. So when Aslan comes back from the dead, first off, my wife can bear witness. I literally just a couple days ago, Aslan came back from the dead and said, "Yes, it is more magic," and I went, "Yeah." It felt so exciting. It felt like, one of this really heroic, awesome moment. I actually said, like, "Aslan, you're so cool." I actually said out loud.
It absolutely is. And that was one line, just the way it is said so epically. The Walden moment it's beautiful photography, but I miss that line. I miss it.
The Walden version, they were trying to get through it so they could get back to the battle. But here, I've read the book and I've seen this movie before, but I still had a really emotional reaction to, yes, Aslan's back.
But the part that really hit me was where they go to the witch's castle and Aslan has unfrozen everyone. He's freed everyone and he's speaking to them. And I thought, oh, this is what a film adaptation looks like when this is where the focus is, where Aslan is the one saving the day, 100%. Doesn't mean other people aren't being brave and heroic. That's not the point. It's that Aslan is the one saving the day.
When Aslan is running with the girls to the castle, we're cutting a little bit to the battle every now and then. But the Aslan and the girls is the main action, and we're just cutting away to the battle on occasion, again, to increase the tension, to remind you, they need to hurry up before the battle. And we're seeing the White Witch start to turn people into stone, and we're going, hurry up, Aslan, hurry up, free the statues, and then get back and save the day. So Aslan's the A story, and the battle's the B story, and they're trying to keep that tension on.
Right, and because they didn't intercut them until that point, you don't feel like there's time wasted when he is having that romp with the girls.
I do like this Aslan overall. One thing I noticed is that when the witch came into camp and was saying, she was trying to make her claim to the deep magic, Aslan felt very protective to me. It felt like, wow, it's a good thing Aslan is standing here between the witch and the kids, because then they'd be in real danger.
I have settled the matter. The witch has renounced the claim on your brother's blood.
How do I know? This promise will be kept.
So I had this big sense of, wow, he's big and he's the only reason why they're alive right now. And then as soon as Aslan's dead, you feel really vulnerable. You feel like your protection's gone. So I thought that in terms of the 90-minute fast-paced. He doesn't hit all the nuances of Aslan from the book, of course. But in terms of what they're doing with the story, the 90-minute, fast-paced, plot-driven version of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think they accomplished with Aslan what they needed to accomplish.
I think of the character designs in the film, he is probably my favorite. I'm also fond of the Professor, actually.
I was about to say the Professor's my favorite.
The Professor's excellent.
I like his little move, his mustache moves instead of his mouth.
He's got this strange decrepit cat that just comes out of nowhere.
That he's petting a cat. It almost makes him feel like a villain. It almost makes him feel like, maybe that's just me, but to me it almost felt like maybe the Professor has some kind of other agenda. It made you wonder, is there a hidden backstory here? And of course there is a hidden backstory.
It almost makes me wonder, looking at some of the characters, like I thought, good grief, did the Lewis estates tell them that the Professor looked okay and that maybe Aslan looked okay, but that they had to change, everyone else, and that's why Susan has a weird, like a octagonal head. It was like just some of it just looks weird.
Yeah, we all agree the animation's not great. We have to make sure we talk about something I think we'll all agree on, and that's the music.
I like the music. I thought a lot of it's the same theme, but depending on the notes or the speed or the pacing, just the tone of it, they can do a lot with it. And I thought the opening, the closing, the end credits, the scene where Aslan comes back from the dead.
The kind of marching interlude theme and Mr. Tumnus's flute. I will say this, as odd as his character design is, Mr. Tumnus's face is terribly expressive.
Yeah, it is, and I think, but it's a lot of people complain about, Mr. Tumnus's his face and his performance is very. I guess maybe he might be the most cartoony thing in the movie in a way. The way he dances around, his face.
I don't mind it so much though, because you can tell that they. First of all, he received more creativity than a lot of the other characters. And also, you could tell that there was just more attention put into the Tumnus depiction. Like, whether it's, Lucy starting to kind of fade out and she just sees his shadow playing.
Yeah, turns of animation that was really cool when it's his silhouette playing the song and she's falling asleep, and then his silhouette kind of turns into the fire. Now, that's a great moment for the animation. Again, we've been waiting for the whole Hitchcock idea of the audience knows more than the characters do. We've known for a while that Tumnus has another agenda, that he's a shady character. Oh, Lucy, don't trust him. So we've been waiting for this. So the big surprise is when, he does kind of lull her to sleep and then has a change of heart. That's a surprise and a big dramatic turn.
What have you done?
I'm in the pay of the White Witch.
The White Witch? Who's she?
Why, it is she that has Narnia under her icy thumb. It's she that makes it always winter and never Christmas.
How awful.
What do you guys think of Father Christmas, or the lack thereof, really? That is to say, the children and the beavers come to, rather than Father Christmas, what they find is the animals at that dinner table saying, Father Christmas has been here. So they mention him, but we don't actually see him, and their gifts are ultimately given by Aslan. That's probably the most, apart from the opening, that's probably the most notable change in the movie. Any particular thoughts about that?
I missed that, but I also couldn't help but think, I don't know, maybe depending on the animation, I would want them to do a good Father Christmas. Maybe it would have been a really weird Father Christmas. I don't know. I get they're doing it for pacing reasons, but I think if I hadn't read the books, I think I'd be kind of going, okay, that's just kind of weird. Like, I'm trying to imagine any other story where, Santa Claus is real, and they just one of the main characters comes across a character. Oh, where'd you get all this? Oh, Santa Claus just gave it to me. You're like, oh, where is he? He's not here.
So basically, if the reason they cut Father Christmas from appearing is because they just thought it'd be too random, it's actually more random to just casually mention it and not.
That's
show
what I
him.
think. I think it would have felt, if they thought it was too random. Yeah, I think it was more random just having it mentioned and not even appear. So you're kind of wondering, wait a second.
Right. But the positive side of this is, the Beavers and the Pevensies, and again, this kind of summarizes the whole adaptation, the approach they've taken. Beavers and the Pevensies are actually talking to the animals at that table as they're eating Christmas dinner. Then they say, okay, time to be moving on now. And as they're leaving, they're just over the hill, and then the White Witch comes and turns them into stone. So it's like it turns the dinner into stone. So they got out of there just in the nick of time. They're, oh no, the witch, run away, run away. And the witch actually says, there they are, get them. And they're cutting back and forth between the beavers and the kids and the witch. And she actually says, I can see them. And then the snow is slowly melting. And then the witch's sleigh can't go anymore. So spring is a big dramatic thing, which I guess it is in the Walden version too. But their spring was sort of kind of an obstacle, and it kind of helps them. Here, spring comes, the witch is about to catch them, and her sledge becomes undrivable just in the nick of time.
See, and if she were willing to do a little sprinting, this wouldn't be a problem.
That's true. All she can do is shout, faster, faster, and put her arms
she
in
runs
the air.
pretty fast from Aslan. It's like, her whole body does the lean, too.
But, I think that's, I approve of that. It's not the book. Like, the arrival of spring, they don't quite do the atmospheric look spring is here. They do it very briefly for about 10 seconds, but it's more of the arrival of spring as a very dramatic thing that rescues our heroes, and we know that it's because of Aslan.
Wow, so. Glumpuddle approves. We should have a stamp.
I do.
Glumpuddle approved. You just go through every old copy you could find at Walmart of the old 1979 cartoon of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Just stamp them. Glumpuddle approved. Glumpuddle approved.
I
Glumpuddle
do
approved.
overall approve of this. It really is. Now, again, in that poll on the Facebook Talking Beast Facebook group, I voted pretty good, just because the animation, and if you could just take the production value and the quality of the Walden version and apply it to this, you'd have a great, not like, the definitive Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe book to movie adaptation, but you have a solid movie that does a good job with the plot and a good job with a lot of the key story points. Like, this feels like a very fair way to condense the story, and it's really enjoyable, and it emotionally resonates with me. It's just a shame, man. It could really get to that extra level if the animation was more nuanced and if it was more well done. I generally would agree with you, Rillian, that I'd rather see someone take a risk on something different, and I wish they'd had the time or just the creative freedom to do that here. And so as I do enjoy this one overall, but there also is a sense of, man, what might have been. You can feel it, that there's a near masterpiece, maybe not masterpiece, but there's something really great waiting in there somewhere. And I've given this a great deal of thought, and I've been trying to, let me hear you guys first, actually. Kristi, what do you like this? Now, this was your first exposure to Narnia. Did you like this one or the Walden version more?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think the Walden version is beautiful. I love the design work, particularly that Weta and A.C. Smithsenden did. And I like the casting. I think the casting for all of the movies is pretty nearly spot on for everything. In a way, I think that the animated one is nearer and dearer to my heart. I've certainly seen it considerably more times. Just that's really hard. If I must give an answer, I would say that I have a little bit more fondness in a way for the animated one.
Okay. How about you, Rillian? I'm not getting a clear sense from you if you liked this or not so far. What did you think of it?
I have a hard time actually really deciding. I definitely appreciated it more watching it now than I did as a kid. Because as a kid, I had a hard time getting over the animation as a kid. I watched it probably twice. And you probably think, good grief, what was wrong with that child? But it kind of pulled me out of the story. Now, on one hand, yeah, I like the Walden version better, but I've also thought, I'm at some point, I'll read. Okay, yes, my son watched this movie with me, but you know what? Children kind of forget the first 3 years of their lives anyway, and he's 2, so I don't feel like I've spoiled the book for him. But at some point, I'll read the book to him, and he'll read it, and he'll watch the movies. And it occurred to me that with the Walden film, we'll end up having these discussions of, okay, did you notice tell me how you noticed that the focus of the story was different, or the role of Aslan versus the children, whereas there's really not going to be that same discussion with the cartoon. And I have a hard time with the animation because it's not just that I don't like it, it's that it takes me out of the story, and it reminds me that I'm just watching a cartoon. But I also really appreciate more about it now, especially, I'll say, the last act. Just seeing how, with Aslan's death, the resurrection, the way that they pace out and emphasize the parts of the story leading up to the death of the witch. And I think I might actually, if I were to rank all the different adaptations, the Walden film's kind of interesting because there's so much good, and then there's so much that's just missing the point. But I think I might have to rank this above the BBC version. Now that I'm thinking, which would I enjoy more? I just enjoy watching this more than the BBC miniseries of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I didn't think I was going to say that after rewatching this, but right now that's kind of how I feel. So I'm kind of torn because on one hand, do I think the Walden film version is better? Yeah, I do. But at the same time, I'm also left with this nagging feeling of, yes, but that one kind of misses some crucial points, whereas this one has some definite flaws, but I can't say that this one misses the point of the story because they get so much right.
Would you say it's a production? Torn. Would you say it's a production whose heart was in the right place?
Yes.
Yes, I really thought about it the past few days, which one do I like more? And intellectually, I want to go with Walden in some ways because it's just a quality production, but there's no doubt when the animated version's over, I go, wow, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. It kind of ends on a high of, it was so exciting when Aslan came back to life. It was just, there's moments that really, oh no, what's going to happen? Even though I've read the book and I've even seen so many versions of this story a few days ago, I was getting caught up in it. I was sort of, in some sense, getting caught up in what's going to happen, getting caught up in the tension, caught up in the story. So, it's not by a mile, but I'm very confident that I do like this version better than certainly better than the BBC version, and overall better than the Walden version. So that's where I'm at. And, we often on this show I think we get some criticism for being too harsh on the Walden versions. And I don't know, it'll be interesting in the comments to see if we get some criticism for going too light on this one. I'll be curious to see that.
We are critics. We actually are critics.
I like it. I ain't apologizing. Glumpuddle out.
Well, Glumpuddle, you got to come back in because we got to do, now that we've discussed the film, we got to do a stump question. Because someone's going to get stumped. Maybe.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. I was Skyping with this woman, and she's got the actual banner of the lion, the rampant lion from the Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe movie, displayed on her wall. So I don't know if we
neglected to mention that. Kristi, you've collected a lot of props from the movies, have you not?
Yes.
What's your favorite Narnia prop that you have?
I really like that banner, to be honest. But I also like I've got a ewer from Mr. Tumnus's house that's only blurry in the movie because it's only shown after the wolf attack.
I don't know if we can stump this woman, dude.
Sorry to do this to you, Kristi. This is your welcome to Talking Beast. This is how we do it here. We try to see what you're really made of. But, Kristi, are you ready for your stump question?
Sure.
Kristi, How many chapter titles in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe contain the word what?
Oh, okay. What Lucy Found There. Let's see. Edmund in the Wardrobe. Aslan is Nearer. What Happened About the Statues? Okay, so yeah, Aslan is Nearer. Yeah, in the witch's house. I should probably guess 3 for a buffer because there's probably another one in there, but I can think of 2 offhand, which are What Lucy Found There and What Happened About the Statues. I'll go with what I've got.
I'm going to say 2.
I'll give it 2.
Well, the correct answer is actually 3, and it is Chapter 2, What Lucy Found There. Chapter 8 is What Happened After Dinner, and Chapter 16 is What Happened About the Statues. So,
okay,
very nicely. That was really fun hearing you work them out and list them all in your head.
I thought Chapter 8 was just What Happened After, but it's What Happened After Dinner. That's impressive, though.
Thank you.
Well, Kristi, thanks so much for being on the show. Again, the website is thelionscall.com. Thank you so much, Kristi.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Talking Beasts, a NarniaWeb.com podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend. And be sure to subscribe and post a comment below or in the Talking Beasts Facebook group. You can also email us at podcast@narniaweb.com, Rillian@narniaweb.com, Glumpuddle@narniaweb.com. For the latest Narnia Netflix news, visit narniaweb.com. Until next time, further up and further in.